Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are talking about Abruptio. I kind of said I was going to do a video on that the other day, and now this is me getting into it. This movie's insane. It is a horror movie starring puppets, which give you that uncanny valley, humanistic look. The music is disturbing and unique and haunting. The close-ups and the cuts that they do, the staging of every scene is absolutely disorienting. This is a horror movie in theme, in visuals, in its audio context, in every way it's represented. It's less of a movie and more of a psychological work of art. I would pay good money to own a puppet from this film. I would pay very good. I would go to an auction and compete. I'm not a wealthy man, but I'd bid it up just a little bit. So let's talk about the film. Um, Without getting into the spoilers, first and foremost, this movie takes place around an individual named Les Heckler. Great name. His first name's Lester. I actually wrote that in my notes. Who names their child Lester? Modern day. I took a bunch of notes on this film, so I'm excited to get into it because they just keep going. It's really cool, and it was a great movie. I mean, I saw the trailer for this, and at the end of the trailer, he says, "I've got a bomb in my neck, just like everyone else." I was hooked. I had to see it, and also I couldn't figure out why they looked so very strange. And they look so very strange because they're puppets. I'm blind, so that's why. Let's give it a little cold open real quick and just kind of get into the film. We are introduced to Les, and he wakes up. He starts his day. I'm not entirely sure what the first thing is that happens. He goes to his office. His girlfriend is talking to him. At that point in time, you kind of don't know it's his girlfriend. And the first thing I noticed was the music, because it's delightfully disturbing. It will unsettle you. This movie started the writing process, I think, in like 2010, 2011. They started filming in 2015. This thing has been in the works for a very long time. And what my favorite thing is, my wife kept saying, whenever you see their feet walking away, those are human feet. And the puppets are usually only shot from like the upper torso up, sometimes shot from the waist up. Very rarely do you see the full puppet. And it's done so well. And you can tell this is a passion project. This is a long time in the making, and it certainly paid off. It paid off. I mean, I intend to buy the Blu-ray. I'm excited to see the special features. I'm kind of getting into that phase of my life where I'm more interested in the special features than I am the main feature itself. So give me some cool special features. Let's get into this film though, because it's got depth, and this is going to go off whatever you think. I said in my review of the trailer, oh, this is probably a sane individual in a world that's gone insane, or an insane individual in a sane world. It was absolutely both of those things. I could have never guessed. I could have never known. The trailer didn't give me a lot to go on, but I could have never figured it out. So we're gonna get into it. I will say this much: I adore this film. I don't feel like things need a grading scale greater than a 1, 2, or 3. 3 is you should watch it, give it a shot. This is a 3. It's not going to be everyone's favorite. If it looks at all even slightly appealing to you, and you're interested in horror movies and maybe even abstract horror, which is where I would put this because of the utilization of puppets for that uncanny valley-esque undertone to everything which occurs. My wife found the puppets to be the most frightening part. So that's that. It's a 3. A 2 is you could watch this, but you don't have to watch it. And then a 1 would just be don't don't watch this. Basically, every single film on Lifetime is 1. Every single film on the Sci-Fi Channel is a 2. Tremors is a 3. The original, it's a 3. So, that's the scale in a nutshell. This one, it's a 3. It earns my top score. Good. You should watch it. So he goes to an AA meeting. That's the first kind of big cut that we get, a big scene where he's talking more and getting more engaged. And there's a woman there talking about getting off the bandwagon. And at some point, someone brings up having voices in their heads. It might even be less. And the individual says, well, everyone has voices in their heads. And drinking, it shuts all the voices up. And that's a real big key point right there. Let's just put that on the put it on the board over there to my, there is no board. But the concept of voices in the head and silencing those voices, quieting those voices, drinking to get away from those voices, this is important. And the idea that the woman who was speaking originally has fallen off the wagon and Les is back on the wagon now. He's going to AA. This is important as well. Let me give you a little bit more, and then I'm gonna make the hard cut for the individuals who want to see the movie on your own and you don't want it spoiled, and then the spoils that I'm going to get into. And I'm also going to talk about, at the end of this video, themes and the design philosophy of this entire film. We're getting into it. We're getting it because this is deep. It might be a bit of a longer one, so put it on, fold some laundry, let's go. Shep, do the dishes. Do the dishes. NATO, play some video games. So, he's at the AA meeting, and that individual says it about the voices. Drinking quiets the voices. It shuts the voices up. So Les gets dumped shortly thereafter, and he gets dumped by his girlfriend, and she calls him creepy. Basically, for the last year and a half, he has been obsessed with his video games, and he's just been getting more and more distant. So Les is not very happy at all, and he is on the wagon. So he goes to see his friend Danny, and his friend Danny pops a beer. But on his way to see his friend Danny, he almost hits a child who was on the side of the street, and somebody shoves the child in front of his vehicle, and he stops. And all you see is the person shoved the child, and then Les stops. And then, hard cut to Danny's place. I thought he hit the child. He didn't. And so he's at Danny's place, and he's talking to Danny about it, and he says, it's crazy that I almost did this thing. And Danny's like, maybe you're looking too far into it. I don't think anybody was pushed. The important fact is that the girl's okay. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Danny then cracks a beer, and he offers one to Les, and Les goes, I'm on the wagon. And Danny's like, oh, you're on the wagon now. And then Danny burps, and it's super gross, and I wrote in here, literally, Danny is a gross individual. And yes, Danny is a gross guy. Then it cuts to him seeing a doctor. The doctor visit is going to come up a few times. We are almost at a point where we need to stop, so I'm going to get to the iron hissing, and then we're going to hard stop it. Because he's at the doctor, the guy wants to do some tests, and then Les decides he's going to go home. They're doing blood tests, so he's going to come back and see the doctor at a later date. When he gets home, the audio in the next scene is absolutely amazing, and the use of lighting is phenomenal. And we are talking about a movie whose main characters are puppets. It has no right to have cinematography, set design, and lighting that makes you feel things, and yet it wears that like a regal robe. The lighting in this scene, the sound design, I take my hat off to you, whoever you may be, because you do an excellent job. I doff my cap to thee. So, he arrives home, and the mother is ironing clothes, and the hiss from that iron coming up is astounding and so creepy. I don't know how it's creepy, why it's creepy. This film just unsettles you, and it uses every opportunity to do so. Phenomenal. Then he tells her that he got dumped, and she's so happy that he got dumped because she didn't like that girl. And she has her husband agree with her because he's always hidden behind a newspaper. And she's like, isn't that right? Yeah, yes, dear. And, oh, you got to speak louder. Yes, you're right. And so that is him coming home and seeing the mother. And then, basically at this point, she uses the full name instead of Les. She calls him Lester. And I'm like, who names their child Lester? Like, that is a way to create a certain individual. I'm sorry I'm looking at my notes so much. I don't usually do this with notes, so I'm practicing. I'm getting into the flow because I want to tackle a few larger projects. I'm going to have to keep my ideas somehow. So there is now we're going to stop. If you are at all interested in this film, if anything I've said has intrigued you in the least bit, please, by all means, go seek out, watch this film. You're going to love it. If you would like to stick around and know how this plot goes, let's do that. Up to this point in time, we have been existing. And this is your final warning. You might want to leave if you want to watch the movie. We've been existing in a real world. That has been Lester's life. Lester has been living his life, and we've been watching him live this life. I don't know if striking the girl or somebody pushing the girl was something his mind was doing to him already and planting the seeds, but I believe that we are still in the real timeline. At this moment, we're going to branch from that a little bit because Les is in an IM conversation with somebody over the internet, and he is talking to them, and they bring up the fact that they have something on the back of their neck, and they tell Les to go look at the back of his neck. So he does, and he has a little incision back there. I don't have one. Do I? Do I have an incision? Man, I hope not. He has a little incision back there, and his friend Dan has one too. So Dan calls him over, and while he's over there, they see on the news that something horrible has happened to the current leader of that particular nation. And all of a sudden, Dan says that he was contacted, and they have to do what they say, or bad things are going to happen. He's like, well, what kind of bad things are going to happen? He goes, the bomb's going to go off in our necks. And he's like, okay, well, that's crazy. And then Dan pulls a gun on him. And then Dan's like, I can't do it, man. I can't do it, man. I love you, brother. And then his head explodes. I don't know if he says I love you, brother, but, he's like, they're best friends. And his head blows up, and it's messed up. And Dan was like a brother to him. I got that vibe from them. Like, that's the kind of guy you see, and the friend you could just tell anything to, like I am with my older brother or with Scott. So he's that kind of individual. Well, then Dan's head blows up, and you see a puppet's head, like you see the neck and the head just, and that is somehow so much more disturbing and so much more visceral and real than if it had actually happened to a person. And I don't know what that says about me, perhaps, that was almost a greater shock, seeing it happen to the facsimile of a human than seeing it happen to a human. I watched a wonderful television show not that long ago with my wife, and we were watching the show, and it was Interview with the Vampire, but it's the television series Interview with the Vampire. Phenomenally done. Excellently done. And at one point, somebody literally rips another person's jaw off, and we go, that's cool. They rip a person's jaw off. And our reaction was, that was cool. Because that's just the reaction we have modern day with violence and humans. But there is just something so disturbing seeing that happen to the puppet. So his head explodes and his head falls off, and this is one of those moments where Les realizes, oh, that's real. This is real. everything that's happening here is real. And then Les gets his first mission. And his first mission is to go and find the comedian. And the comedian is at a bar. So he goes to a bar, and there is a comedian there telling very, very bad jokes. I love the jokes. So we have... I just want to make sure I'm getting everything in its right order. Because for some reason, it went down. Shit, Dan just died. I wrote that down there. You can see it. Boom. Shit, Dan just died. It was intense. I was shocked. Because I was expecting Dan to die. I thought Dan was going to be around for the rest of the movie. So, the head bomb is canon. So, we have Les going to the bar, and he finds the comedian. No. Oh, my apologies. Les doesn't go to the bar first. Les gets a text that says, pick up this briefcase and take it to work. And so he goes and he picks up the briefcase. He's at work, and this guy is talking to him. He's like, hey, Les, don't forget to be there for the 10 a.m. Bonding, team building exercise. And Les is like, I won't. Don't be late this time. And then the guy spills coffee on his shirt, and Les is like, you can use this to get it out. And he goes, that's wine, and walks away. And I'm like, that guy was just why? Why are you even doing team building exercises when this is the team? Also, why are you doing team building exercises if you all work in cubicles? Maybe I'm a stranger to corporate life. I hope I remain a stranger for the rest of my natural born life. So, instead of doing the team building exercises, he opens the briefcase, which starts letting out a gas, and then he runs away, and people start succumbing to the gas. I can only assume it was the mustard kind. It's absolutely horrific. And so he gets home and he tells his mother he's basically been fired. Then he gets another message. The next mission, he has to go to the bar because I guess he did well on the first mission, which is strange. We're not thinking of them yet as missions, neither is Les, but that will come up a little bit later on. So he goes to the bar to find the comedian. And the comedian is telling horrible, horrible jokes. So... I can't repeat most of them. There's one about a person asking about BJ's, and you just watch the movie if you want to get that one. Let me see if there are some I can repeat. Wow, how do you find a dog? Where do you find a dog who has no legs? You find him wherever you put him down, because he's on the ground and he can't move. That's a rough joke. That's very disturbing. Oh, let me see if I can do any other ones, which one of my absolute favorites was, and this guy's name is Saul. He is a bad comedian, and he has an incision. So it says step 8 or 7. Now make that 6, because Saul 2 is on the bandwagon, but Saul is drinking, and every time he drinks, he takes a step backwards, because it's an 8-step program, and whatever step you're on is where you are in your AA journey, so to speak. So, the comedian is a proto-Joker. He faces the world with this dull, extraordinarily dry, cynical approach to it. And I think we're not yet at that point, but let's remember this. We have Danny, we have The Office, and we have the Joker. So they get a text that says kill them all, and it has a Holmes picture there. Now, at this point, right before this was the creepy cartoon. He is watching a horror movie on the TV, and he falls asleep. And it's astounding. The horror movie is so well done. I want that movie, too. I want an entire I would buy a box set of these creepy puppet films, and I would just call them that, creepy puppet films, because they are phenomenal. But the horror movie looks amazing, and there's a beheading in it, and it's good stuff. Also, there's naked puppet there's puppet nudity in this film. My wife found that to be exceedingly creepier than normal, just because it's very different, strange, abnormal. I didn't see anything, but I take her word for it 100%. So basically, they are now going to this house. They knock at the door, and it is Saul and it is Les. And I'm going to kind of go off script a bit moving forward. But Saul and Les are going to the home, and they knock on the door, and the father and mother in the home. The father tells the daughter to go open the front door, and it's Saul. And Saul's like, "Oh, we're not killers or anything." And it's like, yeah, that's not what you say, because you're there to do that. And of course, we cut to the family being tied up, and this leads to perhaps one of the hardest scenes I think I've seen in a movie ever. And again, because it was done with puppets, somehow it was more real than if it hadn't been done with puppets. Like if this scene was shot with humans, I could almost see it as less real, because I would know that they're actors and they're acting. But because it's done with puppets, and I've always had this approach to cartoons too. I find cartoons to have a depth and a reality to them that is far beyond that of watching a TV show with humans in it. So if which you would absolutely never have, like an not NCIS, Law and Order Special Victims Unit. If you would ever have that show, but with puppets instead of human actors, that would be so much more disturbing than that show with Ice-T in it. Because he makes it more of a cartoon than I think it's ever supposed to be. So we cut to them tied up, and Jesus, this is a rough scene. I have it written right there. This is even worse because of the amalgam. Is that the correct word? I like facsimile. The facsimile of humanity. The father is begging for their lives. He's going to open the safe, and Les is saying over and over again, "I don't have a choice. This isn't me doing this. I don't have a choice," which Les does have a choice. And that's the thing. Les feels like he doesn't have a choice. He is forced to do this because he doesn't realize he does have a choice, and the choice is he could not do it. He could take out Saul and save this family. And he himself would be a price to pay, a cost in that calculation. But morally speaking, he's not there. He's doing the utilitarian, holistic approach of if he wants to continue living, they have to die. And so therefore he doesn't have a choice, because at the end of the day we're animals, and if you take rational thought out of it, which the rational thought would be this is two lives for one, or the life of an adult for the life of a child. It's the whole, do you pull the lever to the left or to the right? Are you going to hit the doctor? Are you going to hit the 5 people that are on the railroad? And it's like the correct answer is I'm not going to touch that lever, because the minute I touch it, I'm a murderer. And that's an interesting conundrum, because if you refuse to engage with the question whatsoever, you're not a murderer. You that man. I ain't run for president here. I ain't get to decide which person this train's gonna hit. I'm not the conductor. I didn't take that duty upon myself, and I'm not getting paid for it. So I ain't touching that. And that's kind of that is a valid answer to the question. So Les doesn't doesn't answer the question. He fully engages with it, and he decides his life is more important than theirs because he has to stay alive long enough to figure out what's going on. And you see the father's head get blown apart. The mother and the daughter are face to face, and she is begging the daughter to close her eyes, and the daughter is begging her to make it stop. Just close your eyes, make it stop. And then the mother gets shot, and then we cut to them, and Saul finishes. And no, not Saul. Les finishes shooting. He is killed a child now. There's no coming back for Les. He's gone. He's destroyed a family. Put it right over there on the board. Boop. Now, he's not done. Because the texts, they each get a text. It says, kill them all. Well, there's another person here. So either Les kills Saul or Saul kills Les. Les decides he's going to try to shoot Saul with the gun. The gun's empty. Saul grabs a knife, goes out into the yard looking for Les. He's got his knife. Les is hiding. And Saul says, the best joke. There's two of them. The second one's rough. But the first one's one of the best jokes I've ever heard in my entire life. Wait for it, and you'll really, really appreciate it. Why don't you ever hear a pterodactyl urinate? Because the P is silent, y'all. Enjoy that. The second one is, why did the two tampons stop talking? Well, because they were both stuck-up Karens. I'm not proud of that joke. And I didn't make that joke. I don't have a choice here. The joke was made by Saul, and he dies shortly thereafter. So, it's A-okay. Because Saul thinks he has the upper hand, and he gets hit in the back of the head with a shovel. Now Les has the upper hand, and Les literally beheads Saul. And the entire time, Saul is telling a joke. It's a great scene. It's a great scene. That is proto-Joker. That is an individual who has cynically given up on everything and lives strictly for themselves. So, we then jump ahead to the idea. The husband's head explodes. Now they have to kill each other. I already got that part. Oh, why can't you hear a pterodactyl urinate? Because the P is silent. I want to make sure... Oh, what did a mountain climber name his son? Cliff. Get it? Cliff. That's a mountain. The mountain climbers. Mountains have cliffs. That's the joke he says while he's being beheaded. It's a great joke. It's a great joke. That's when he says the one about the dog with no legs, which is messed up. That's when the comedian is executed. And I wrote, this film is brutal. Because it is. This film is just super brutal. It's a rough film. So now we get the first scene where Les is taken to the police station, and he is actively covered in blood. He has blood splatter on him. And the police are asking him if he wants to confess to something. And everything he kind of ends up confessing to, talking about Les Hackle. Can't believe his name is Les Hackle. Les Hackle is still covered in blood. He sits with the chief of police. It goes straight to the chief of police, and the proceedings begin. He said, I didn't. He didn't. He's lying. Why? because the chief of police is questioning him if he was told about what the process was. He says, "Oh, Paul told you," or that individual. He goes, "No, he didn't." "Yeah, he did. Peter, get in here. You told him, right?" "Yeah, I did." "No, he didn't." "Yeah, he's lying." "Why would I lie?" It's very funny. It has some dark humor at times. I did appreciate it. So the confession has to change about something, and he confesses. He says about the family. We know about the family. About the briefcase. We know about the briefcase. Confess. We need you to confess before we can try you. And he won't do it. So they bring in the, what do they call it? The truthinator? The lawyer. They bring in the lawyer first and foremost. And the lawyer is just insane. His voice is very unique. He is completely on the side of the police. It's a shocking, shocking situation. What did I write? Daycare epic. Oh, the lawyers. So the reason they need to get this confession so quick is the lawyer's poodle is in daycare, and the lawyer has to go pick him up at 5. And so they need to get this done by 5. So Les actually has like a limit, and he's going to be let go if they can't get this confession out of him. So they bring in this machine, and they connect the shocks to his head and to his everywhere else, and they start electrocuting him. And the chair he's in has automatic straps, and I wrote that down, that it has automatic straps, because that's a big tell at this point in time that something's not right. Anytime things start happening automatic or technologically advanced like that, we're kind of seeing a blurring of reality ever so slightly. I mean, the fact that the police are wanting him to confess, and he's murdered a family, and they know about it, and are just like, well, that's what we don't need you to confess to that. We need you to confess. Do you have anything you want to confess to? He's like, no, I haven't done anything. So what is this called? The confessional. Thank you very much. The confessional is an electro torture machine. It's connected to his testicles and head, and it is bad. And that's when Les starts confessing, but they already have all of that. So he's gagged with clamps and tortured a little bit. The lawyer is literally cackling, and it's a Joker cackle this entire time. But this is the lawyer with the poodle in daycare, so I wouldn't put it past him to cackle. He just gives me that kind of individual who would cackle vibe. The machine is utterly terrifying. And then they do it again. Now, for some reason, they decide they're just going to dump Les out in the middle of nowhere, and that is where he gets put. Then they call him Honey Boo Boo, which I thought was excellent. The Honey Boo Boo reference is made by a British man working in a garage. Les shows up, and he is now going to partner with this British man. Now, the British man keeps talking to him about growing a spine, having a spine. You need to stand up for yourself. He calls him Sweet Pea, Honey Boo Boo. He's constantly belittling Les. And he is not played by the individual who plays Spike. Spike is later on. But the person who played Spike in Buffy is in this movie. And that's absolutely amazing. So Les is riding shotgun with this British guy. And there are helicopters outside. There's the sounds of riots happening. It is not going well. Society is collapsing around them. And there is this one scene where I believe this is where they drive by, and there is a body hanging from a basketball hoop, and the body is wrapped in a trash bag. And you just, this we don't see enough of it, but give me Black Summer with puppets, and you will have my fandom for life. I will give you that. Black Summer, but with puppets. Whew. That would be amazing. So they go to this, I guess it was a hardware store, or perhaps it's a gas station, and they get attacked by a guy. He's running down the aisle, he's screaming, he's got a machete, he's coming at him, and the British guy just like shoots him in the head. And it's, whoa, okay, this dude's here to do a job. So they go into it, and they find a whole lot of cash, and then Les is knocked out and wakes up, and the British guy is talking about big plans. He leaves Les with, I don't know what that word is. Oh, he leaves Les with half of the cash, and the woman, he leaves Les with half of the cash and a car. So Les now has a lot of money. He has a home to stay in. It just so happens to be the home where he has shot 3 people. And he has a new car, which is a pretty sweet new car, I guess. I don't know much about it. I think it might be a Mustang. I don't know cars, I'm blind. So Les is driving home, and a woman shows up, and she is scared as all bejesus. And it's because it's crazy out there, and she has a story of being dragged out of the car by 5 guys, and she gets knocked out, and it's a harrowing tale. And so Les takes her home, and this is Chelsea, and she is absolutely traumatized. So this is kind of a bit of redemption. This is an angel that has entered Les's life, and it's almost, I guess, the kind of angel he feels he deserves, someone he can save, someone who needs him no matter what, someone who is willing to, upon realizing there is a dead family and a murdered child in the kitchen of the home they're in, they're gonna stick around. And their only response to it is, you should bury them. They deserve that. I mean, after they freak the fuck out, which is just completely normal. But ooh, that's interesting. So Chelsea finds the dead family, and this is where I think I stopped taking notes for a minute. But I can now freestyle it, because that's what I gotta do. So she finds the family, and we have these scenes with her in the home with Les, and she is attempting to basically get back to some kind of normalcy, but Les has to go out and do these jobs. Now, Chelsea, I call her C moving forward. C does not have an incision in the back of her neck. Les does. And Les tries to tell her that there are people that are controlling things out there. But out there is getting more and more dangerous. So Les has another job to do, and he shows up, and there's an older man, and this individual is germophobic. And he says, do you mind taking your shoes off? He goes, my shoes? Yeah, your shoes. You might have stepped in dog shit. I don't want you to bring it in the car. So before he gets in the man's car, he has to take off his shoes. And he has to hold his shoes so he doesn't get the bottom of the shoes into the car. They're driving along, and the guy is talking about being an accountant and, you know, dotting your I's, crossing your T's. Everything makes sense. Everything has a purpose. And that's what disturbs him, is because these missions don't have a purpose, or they don't seem to have a purpose. So Les asks him what his mission was, and he, as he's driving, regales the tale of Molotov cocktailing a building full of aged individuals who were younger. And I mean, this is told to you by a puppet, but the puppet has the voice of Spike from Buffy, and Spike is telling you how some of them didn't die in the building. They ran out of the building, but they were already dead because they were still on fire. And some of them may have survived, but what kind of life is that? And it is horrifying. Again, this movie is brutal. And I mean, that family scene, that was rough. This one is rough. Chelsea scene, C, is rough. she also has a shower scene, and that's just a naked puppet. For the two of you out there that are interested in that, look it up on Mr. Skin. I'm sure it has a timestamp. But they get to where they're supposed to be, and the timer starts counting down. And they have a job to do, and the job is to take these bodies that are over here, wrapped in garbage bags, and to dump them into this puree blender, which then chops up the bodies and puts out a human goo into barrels that have a Herculean knot on them. And it's very, very disturbing. So Les just gets into it, whereas the germophobic individual is freaking out. There are bugs. This is disgusting. There are flies everywhere. There are dead bodies. He doesn't want to touch a dead body. Les finds that one of the bags has a living person in it. Turns out the living individual in the bag is Les's ex-girlfriend, the one who dumped him for being creepy. Well, Les has a job to do, and he doesn't want his head to explode, so he has to put this woman into the blender machine. Well, she says, God damn it, I love you, you asshole. And Les purees her. It's gross, cathartic. Les is purging his life of individuals that are toxic to him. Put it on the board. Well, the germophobic individual, the one who is afraid of everything, who's afraid of things he cannot see, put it on the board. Well, he doesn't do anything, so his head explodes. That's rough. So Les has been now making barrels full of human goo. He goes home to see Chelsea, and he just says, honestly, I just want to take a shower and change my clothes. And she's like, oh, I can make you food. We have soup. And it's this domestic lifestyle. It's the caring, the all-accepting female figure that perhaps Les has always wanted in his life. Put it on the board. We have 5 things on the board now. There's going to be more. So this is something that Chelsea sees, but then she sees a barcode in connection with his incision, and she kind of scans it, and what comes up is, before the barcode, they start hearing music, and they have no idea why, and they go out in the yard, and the music's coming from the grave, and so Les digs up Saul, whom he buried in the grave, and he digs into Saul's stomach, and he finds a USB drive that's playing music. This is Saul level, let's play a game. Thank you. Yes, please give me more. I'm on board. This is great. He puts the USB drive into the computer, and hieroglyphics show up. Binary code shows up. I really want to put this on a different board, because that's where it deserves to be. Because this is, I don't know quite yet. We've got theories. We're going to discuss them later. So, at some point, he gets taken back into the police station after he makes this discovery. The police, again, are asking him if he wants to confess. I believe he goes to the doctor, and he is talking about the explosive device in his neck. And the doctor's like, if you actually had an explosive device in your neck, I'd have to hold you for further... Oh, that's exactly what happens. He goes to the doctor, and he gets the x-ray done, because he tells the doctor, just x-ray my neck. Give me a scan of my neck. And the doctor says, well, if I do that, and I think you're going to be a harm to yourself, I can have you kept on a psychological evaluation. He goes, just do the scan, and you're going to see. So they do the scan, and Les is recovering in the hospital room when a... Vivacious V walks in. I just have her down as V. I think her name was Victoria. And Vivacious V, Victoria, is a boobtastic individual who is very, very attracted to Les for some reason, and offers to take Les's temperature, and then tells him after she grips him, and he complains that it's still tender from the torture he went through the other day, that it seems like he's got a bit of a fever, and she's got the cure. It's very well done. These are not your grandfather's innuendos. So then Les asks what's through there, and she says, well, that's the colony, because Les has at some point come across an alien, Has he come across the alien just yet? Let me go back to my notes and just double check everything. He makes a getaway. Okay. Les TC makes a getaway. Hans Rays. Lala Joyland. They go to Joyland. And that is where I think we are. Let me scroll it down a little bit. Whew. That's that joke right there. End of the world. Okay. So, I have no idea. We're just going to freestyle it moving forward because my notes were not very good. So, Les is outside. He has seen the alien before, but he has only seen it in passing. And now he witnesses the colony. That's what V says. Oh, that's the colony out the doors. And he goes out and he looks, and it is pregnant women. And she says, it's really not so bad. They do something to you. Maybe they put something to you, or they give something to you, which makes a hunger, a hole inside yourself, a void that you cannot fill. It's important. Put it on the board. A hunger, a void, something you cannot fill. Why do alcoholics drink? Why are we addicted to things? What is the addiction but the discovery that there was something always missing inside you, and you cannot fill it because it cannot be filled, but you have found something which temporarily makes you feel full. That's what V has been pushed, essentially. Now, what you get to see is what these aliens are doing at the colony to the women, and what they're doing is impregnating them, and the women are giving birth to weird red egg things on the ground. And so Les says, I'm going to go over there. This is wrong. We need to stop this from happening. I'm going to kill those things. And V says, well, don't do that because your head will explode. And I need you because I have the hunger. And he says, you are hungry. You told me. And you need me. So if you don't go over there and kill those things, I will, and then I'll die. And he makes V go over there and murder the egg unborn human alien hybrid things, which again is another murder, more blood on his hands. He had a choice this time, and not only did he choose, but he forced someone else to do it. If anything, you're taking the full amount of blame when you're doing something along those lines. And so V does it, and one of the alien things attacks V, and Les runs away, and he makes his way back to Chelsea, and he says that he remembers this song because it played at a place from his childhood called La La Joyland. And so they go to La La Joyland, and while he's there, he essentially tells C stories about his childhood and how they used to come here a lot, and there was this white fuzzy dog that scared the hell out of him, and its eyes always faced in different directions. And we kind of get the idea that this is perhaps where something may have occurred to Les. Something happened here. He has to come back to confront it because this is perhaps where the stage was set for who he becomes later on. The alcoholism, the self-destructive behavior. He says to Chelsea C, who, remember, represents for him in this instance a chance at retribution, a chance at being forgiven, if you will, that his mother was overbearing and his father was missing. And she goes, where did your father go? And he said, nowhere. He was there, but he was missing. And that's very key because that's kind of a big thing for millennials to discover with their therapist is my father was always present, but I felt like, he wasn't there in my life. I can just imagine somebody saying that to a therapist at some point. And so my father was literally in Iraq for 17 years out of my 34. So take of that what you will. What we can see is he is kind of attempting to confront these things from his past, and then Brit shows up and smacks C in the face, knocking C out, and Brit's attacking him and he's attacking Brit, and they have this epic fight, and he gets the upper hand, and then an alien shows up, and we get to see one of the aliens for the first time, and it's an alien. I mean, this thing is serious. And so Les escapes with Chelsea, but it turns out that Chelsea has an incision now, and they got to her last night. And so Les has to literally rip her throat out. And he is then arrested by the police again. And they're talking about an instance where he saw a dog's throat get ripped out one time, and how just visceral and cruel it was. And of course, Les has just done this thing to Chelsea, and Les has seen that the human goo that they're making with the Herculean knot is being fed to the aliens. So they're turning the humans into food for the aliens. When V sees him in the hospital, she brings him a statue of Atlas, a man with the world on his shoulders and like a fidget spinner for some reason. So then he finally decides, because the alien creatures, they look like octopus beard things. I don't know. They're epic. I mean, that's Cronenberg good, man. You did good, puppet guy. So Les, in the end, he goes home. It's the last place he can go. It's his last bastion. He needs to confront his mother. This is where it all started. This is where it has to end. All of our traumas begin with our mothers. Am I wrong, guys? Hey. So, or am I right, guys? I don't know. I'm sure everybody else has, trauma with their mother too. I love my mom. He goes home and he confronts her, and she goes, well, it would be great having you around the house again. Thank you for finally cleaning your room. We never saw him clean his room, did we? Thank you for finally cleaning your room. You can really help out with the brood. It's feeding time. He goes, the brood? And she takes him to the garage, and she opens the garage door, and there's a whole bunch of the babies. So they've been taking regular people, and they're now forcing them to take care of the babies that are born from the women that are impregnated by the aliens, and the women are given a substance or a drug or just something that makes them hungry enough to have to continually seek out this thing, the thing being sex, to get impregnated by the aliens. And then once you're no longer of use to the aliens, they release the women, and the women have to go out there into the world with this hunger, with this hole, with this need to be filled that can never be filled. Message, put it on the board. So he sees it in the garage, and he tells his mother, we have to kill these things. And his mother's like, we have to feed them. And she brings up a bottle of blood, and he smacks it out of her hand, and it's messed up. So he grabs a pair of shears. I don't know what he's going to do with them. Maybe he's going to chop the screaming alien things up, but instead he ends up stabbing his mother with it. And he spreads gasoline throughout all of the garage, and he lights it on fire, and he runs out of the house looking for his father, but his father's gone. Metaphor again. The father's absent, missing. He was there, now he's not there. The mother's dead. He's finally confronted her, and the fact that she is literally raising demons inside him with all of the things that she's putting on him from her life. We're going to get into it when we talk about the themes and the philosophy, believe me. So there is a last part to the story. Les runs outside, and he ends up back at the police station. The police arrive. And at the police station, he is told to confess again. And he confesses. He confesses to hitting the man. He confesses to drinking too much. And the police chief says that's what we needed. Then Les wakes up in his room. He pulls out his phone. He calls the police, and he tells them, I'd like to report a crime. And we see this flashback where Les is in a bar and he is shit-faced. The bartender is the old germophobic man. The rest of the people are there in auxiliary. He is drunk, and so he's getting cut off. The bartender asks if he can call him a ride, and Les says no, and Les snatches his keys and goes out and gets in the car, and he's, again, shit-faced. So he's now driving under the influence, and he ends up striking a bicyclist and killing him, and then continuing home. A 29-year-old with a family, a wife, and a daughter. That's the man he killed. And that's the family he ruined. This is why Les has been creepy for the last year and a half. Because Les has been dealing with the trauma of taking human life and then the added scumbaggery, but also trauma of deciding that person's already dead. But if I lead a good life moving forward, then I shouldn't be held responsible for this. I shouldn't be tried for this. This was a mistake. This was a negative thing. The police officer in the station even says vehicular manslaughter. You're going to get a slap on the wrist, a year and a half. You might even just get probation. Now, this was technically a hit and run. He fled the scene, but he turned himself in. I don't know if they're going to go, they won't go easy on him. I predict Les is going to probably get 3 to 5, but probably no more than that. However, it's not how much time he serves. It's the fact that he has literally been putting himself through a hell. So being arrested is probably the right thing for him. Not the right thing for society. It's the right thing for him. And that's what's so interesting, is he is a part of society. We need to realize that about the criminal element. They are us, we are them. And so, Jordan Peele wrote a movie about it, literally called Us, and then that movie had a sequel. It's called Them. I'll do the sequel at some point, believe me. So he calls the police and he turns himself in, and that's the end. And the absolute last thing that happens is it has this flash where the Les puppet is replaced by the human counterpart of Les, the voice of Les, and it's this moment. A very powerful movie, an extraordinarily powerful message. It's echoed by other films. Jacob's Ladder has huge influential roots that intertwine throughout this film. So does the movie The Machinist, which isn't necessarily itself a horror film, but can be viewed as a horror film. And it's about, no spoilers for The Machinist, but if you haven't seen it yet, go watch The Machinist. If you just listen to this thing, and now I'm bringing up The Machinist, you kind of get what's going on. Jacob's Ladder is much more difficult. It's about the trauma of the Vietnam War. It's about an entire nation's wounds. It's about people returning home from it's about a bunch of stuff, and it's very well done. But this particular movie may be a Jacob's Ladder situation. However, there's one thing I can't explain, and that's the hieroglyphs, the music, the thumb drive, the point of that. So let's go through all the things we put on the board real quick. He's in AA talking about voices. There's a scene at the very end where Chelsea brings up the voices again, and she goes, now that you've silenced all the voices, are you ready to confess? And that's it. That's why when he wakes up, he's ready to confess, because he had to mentally go through this entire checklist. The cynical, drunk comedian who is doing AA but isn't doing AA, and is doing the steps but is walking back the steps every other night and telling terrible jokes that nobody listens to at the bar but doesn't really care. The fact that he is willing to kill to survive. The fact with the family, the fact that he is willing to uh, just butcher other human beings up to and including his ex-girlfriend. He's willing to destroy that relationship even though she still loves him, and that metaphor can be that she would have probably taken him back, but he needed to break ties like that in order to allow himself to be okay with going into prison. Imagine if he had a child and he felt that he owed it to the child to not leave and go to prison to serve his time for what he had done. He would always hold that against the child. His absent father, his overbearing mother. He needed to literally see his father gone, to literally kill the voice of his mother in his own mind. He is in his head for this movie, but perhaps he's not. Now, V represents addiction. She represents the concept of having a void inside yourself, having a hole that cannot be filled, having a space which you cannot, no matter how hard you try, satiate it. And I myself have a very small, extraordinarily minuscule concept of this because I enjoy purchasing inventory to resell on eBay. I always have. And in my blind years, I don't do as much eBay as I used to. But something that would always come across whenever I would hunt for inventory is I'd have to buy everything. I'd have to get everything. I had this real problem with hoarding and getting tons of inventory, and it was a humongous problem. And I kind of overcame it slowly. I'm still working on it. It's always something you work on. You can't ever truly overcome something like that. But I realized one time listening to another one of the eBayers on YouTube that that fear of missing out, that FOMO, that's anxiety. You need to rationalize the fear. There's going to be stuff there tomorrow. There's going to be stuff there the next day. You're just scared because you're scared. So just acknowledge you're scared. I'm going blind, and fear is a powerful thing. Daredevil is called the man without fear. And he is a man without fear because at that point in time, and I think it's still true today, the greatest phobia we have as a species is fear of the dark. Are you afraid of the dark? Everyone's afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid of the dark. In fact, I don't care if it's dark or not. And that didn't start happening until I went blind. I walk around a dark house all the time. It's my house. Of course it's dark. Who are the lights for? You know, I can sit in a dark room. I have been showering in the dark for many years, and it weirds people out whenever they realize that yeah, I'm just in this room and you've come in and turned on the lights and I'm still doing stuff like nothing's happening because lights are a minimal improvement to the environment around me at any one point in time. And so therefore I have no fear in the sense that Daredevil has no fear. Blind people aren't afraid of the dark. That's where we live, man. Les has to shed this fear. And one of the ways to do that is to confront it. Perhaps women have been a weakness for him in the past. He has this strange side plot with the aliens, and we're going to discuss them further because I don't believe the aliens truly... See, they don't have anything to do with Les. That's why I think there can be another beautiful, interesting argument in this film. The British man does have something to do with Les. He keeps bringing up the spine. He keeps belittling him. He keeps saying sweet pea, honey boo boo. He is almost bullying Les, and it's because he's the kind of individual Les wants to be, in the fact that he doesn't care what others think. He would have called the police after he struck the biker, or the individual riding the bike. Or he wouldn't have cared and it wouldn't have bothered him. And Les finds both of those options much more appealing than option C, which was you have the chutzpah, the cojones to drive away from that dead man, but you feel guilty about it. And it's like we have a motto in the family, and it's important to be proud of everything that you do. If you can't be proud of it, don't do it. And that's the kicker. So we have the concept that these individuals he meets, Saul, the cynical comedian, is the alcoholic, is the individual who thinks he needs to drink and he needs to go to the bars. V is the true addiction. The British man is the spine. The germophobic individual is Les's fear of the external, of the world around him, and it has to die. Unless his friend Dan is an individual who, kind of offhandedly says, "Oh, you're back on the wagon, huh? Oh, how's that going?" Psh, pops a beer. He's living a lifestyle that Les can no longer live because Les has to grow up. Chelsea C represents Les's salvation, and then you have the major, revelation with his mother, but that doesn't answer the aliens. So Les has been dealing with the trauma of striking this biker and killing him for the last year and a half. He's been in denial. He is kind of getting his life not back together because his life didn't fall apart until this happened. So his life has fallen apart around him, and he has become a creepy, detached individual who has drawn away from everyone else. He feels like society is crumbling around him because it should be, because he has done this horrible thing, and the individual's family deserves to know. So he turns himself in. That's where the movie ends. That's the ultimate message of it, is he chooses to do the right thing, and he's still a terrible person for driving while drunk in the age of Uber and killing another individual, taking human life, taking that man away from his family. Now, that doesn't answer the aliens, and it doesn't answer the world falling apart, the pureeing of human beings, the alien eggs being hatched, the binary code, the barcodes on the back of their necks. Perhaps they can be explained with the concepts that Les feared, the incision, the bomb. Something was making him. Maybe the bomb is the guilt, and the incision is the forcing of him to go forward and actually accomplish the tasks that need to be done by confronting the horrible realities of what he has done. He destroyed a family, and so he literally goes to a house and destroys a family with his bare hands. He murdered that man, and he literally beheads Saul. He did these things, and so he does those things. And he saves the world, kind of. He burns the alien children. He has V smash them in their egg form. But what if there is something darker here? What if these aliens are actually there? And the fact that Les has been completing these tasks and finally turns himself in, that it doesn't mean he wasn't awake for some of those. Maybe he was sleeping for some of them, but maybe he was awake for others. Maybe there are two stories being told here. The film's name itself actually comes from a medical term. that happens in I think in utero, and you can look it up if you'd like to know more. I don't believe it's a good thing, but the idea that Les is a product of the society in which he was raised and is prevalent. He is a child, but he is a child not of his mother, but more metaphysically of all of us. And his journey is sort of the dystopian journey that I think we must all go on if we are to fix what ails us in our each one different ways. He did it in a much more bombastic and interesting way than a lot of people do. A lot of people just do that journey with a therapist, and they come out being better for it. Les did the journey with, various different weapons and cell phone text messages telling him to go do horrible things. It's not the same journey for everybody, I guess you could say, but in a nutshell, that's the movie, and it was a phenomenal film. I cannot, I can't say enough just how excellent it was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really hope that you watch it and enjoy it as well. And I hope I did a good job recapping it, because I really made an attempt on this one. The movie was so unique. Jordan Peele played the friend. He was in it somewhere. I don't know where exactly he was, but it was really, really well done. And at the end of it, I was just in awe of the story that it told, and the way that it told that story, and how they intricately stitched together the various lines, the La La Joyland into the British individual that I called the Brit, the callback to Saul, the jokes that were mean spirited and cruel and horrible, but he got them, I guess. Les is not a good person. Les is not a hero. Les drove drunk and struck a man and killed him. And Les had to make himself a hero in his own mind before he could allow himself to actually do the right thing. That's fucked up. Thank you guys for hanging out. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I need to edit out a few bits, I'm sure, but remember that pterodactyl joke, because it's a good one. Like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I will see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.